Righty, and another 30 for 30. I don't even know how many 30 for 30s we're at right now. I'm going to have to take a count. I have just been putting out videos and not really worried about it, you know? Maybe that's one of the reasons it's actually working is because the goal is not really set. The goal is infinite. But a few other quick things, of course. As always, check out the Patreon page. There is no cost to join it. You can join it for free, or you can join for $1. Join the debunk army and stand for something bigger. We are fighting against the propaganda. Same thing for the PayPal link. If you want to donate some money, great. But more importantly, is just getting the channel remonetized and need some watch time. Check out the playlist. I have the 30 for 30 in a playlist. If you've missed any of the 30 for 30 episodes, check them out. Having a single person watch multiple videos definitely helps. Get the watch time up. And yeah, I mean, even if you just have a video playing in the background while you're doing work, definitely helps. So I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and get to the point of today's video, though. With power waning, Xi Jinping loses influence in U.S.-China trade talks. So this is something that has kind of been in question for a while now. We've noticed that, for a moment there, Xi Jinping was doing this thing where he was really consolidating his power. He was ending a lot of different positions within the government, and in return putting himself in power of those positions. And now we seem to be seeing the reversal. A lot of those positions that he put himself in charge of are either being refilled with different people, and we've also noticed, of course, different things like just the simple fact that he seems to be, I don't know, less important when talked to. It's a strange thing, right? Because you would think that China, again, has this, monolith thing under Xi Jinping's iron grip, right? He calls the shots on the global stage, be it trade wars, moon landings, or military parades, whatever. But behind the curtain, something is definitely going on. A hidden conflict is brewing. And it's a one-party thing, right? A shadow war for power inside the Chinese Communist Party. And the signs are more alarming than you've been told. There's a weird thing. We look at it as a single party system in China, but for those that know, for those that are in the know and know the history, it's definitely, even though it's a one party system, it's a multi party inside of a one party. Now, does that mean it's democracy? No, of course not. Definitely does not. It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that there are multiple parties that do fight, over certain things within the main Chinese Communist Party. So, but recently, at one time, like I said, Xi Jinping, he ruled with, unprecedented, right, authority. He, got rid of term limits. He purged rivals. He projected dominance around the world. And, he tried to make China look like a unified party state. They had that one vision, one leader, total control thing they were doing. But it seems to have, fallen apart. Recent moves inside Beijing suggest that Xi's once unchallenged power is beginning to erode. There seems to be, I guess you could say, a quiet rebellion, from the system itself. And this happens in communism a lot of times before it, self-implodes. If it succeeds, it could bring down the Xi era, right? It could take Xi out as not just as a president, or a leader of their country, but could completely, right? We've seen it happen already, where super important people within the Communist Party are removed. They were removed by Xi, but it could be his turn, Analysts are already saying that he's losing influence, especially when it comes to U.S.-China diplomacy. That's one thing I think the American government has noticed directly, because in recent high-level talks, the Chinese delegation didn't appear to be talking, taking orders, I guess you could say, from Xi directly. Instead, it seems like they've got some behind-the-scene players, economic technocrats, regional leaders, what we would call old guard elites too, that seem to be back in charge. The world saw Xi vanish from the public eye for nearly 2 weeks, in the spring. And then he reemerged in a tightly controlled appearance with Belarus dictator. And, there was no big speeches, there were no grand gestures, just photo ops and silence, This isn't what really dominance looks like. It's kind of what a recalibration looks like, behind closed doors, quiet restructuring is probably underway. Sources would suggest, that key officials loyal to Xi are being replaced or sidelined. Party insiders tied to former leaders, like people that don't actually know this. Hun Jintao was actually very, very powerful within the Communist Party. And, when Jiabao, they seem to be coming back out, right? And a wave of even silent reshuffling is taking place, I think, too, outside of Xi's control under mechanisms. Because what people don't know is that there were two parties within the party of the Communist Party. And, they have different ideas, being more traditional, less traditional. And Xi Jinping, actually ended up kind of screwing them both, making promises to both and lying to both, and then consolidating power under himself. So, again, just because it's a one party state doesn't necessarily mean that it's united. It's full of factions and reformers, hardliners, princelings, regional bosses, and they don't agree, in many different ideas, and in fact, many of them are now working to, apparently, it seems, to contain Xi. So, this isn't, I wouldn't say it's a military coup at this point. There's no tanks in the streets, obviously, but it is a civil war in the sense of influence, a political chess match, quiet, deliberate, and it is deadly to Xi Jinping if he's not careful. And while Xi did, of course, spend the last decade tightening his grip and removing opposition, he also created enemies. Lots of them. People who were once powerful pushed out. People who still have networks, influence, and ambition. And now, as the economy stalls, youth unemployment spikes, and international relationships collapse, these hidden individuals within the Communist Party are going to see this as a weakness in Xi Jinping. It's going to be an opening. And when you're running an authoritarian regime, weakness is fatal. People got to remember that's how China happened, right? The Communist Party took advantage of a situation of war when the opposition was weak, right? And they came in and took over. That's what's happening to Xi right now. The narrative is that Xi's always in control, and he's but apparently he's not. He's beginning to fall apart. He can't micromanage every negotiation, as we've seen with America. He can't personally direct every trade deal, as we've seen again with America, but a lot of other countries too. And there's growing speculation that he's not even the final voice in the room anymore. I mean, it's crazy, right? And that's terrifying, especially for him, because if he's not the final word on foreign policy or economic decisions, on military posture, then what is he? A figurehead? A liability? What is Xi Jinping at this point? He might still be the face of the regime, but behind him, the machine is moving on. And that is exactly how authoritarian collapses start. Not with the explosion, but with a quiet shift in power. The people who were once loyal to stop answering your calls, okay? The state media lose its enthusiasm. Foreign leaders no longer treat you like the shot caller. It happens slowly, right? Then all at once. Inside the CCP, there are growing signs that Xi's era is being unwound. And the same system that he once bent his will on is going to turn on him, right? It's usually what happens. Retired leaders still hold influence. Same thing in America, right? We may not think about it. Obama and Hillary Clinton and these types of people, they may not hold direct power, but they still have influence, right? It's the same thing in China. Technocrats will still whisper economic truths behind closed doors. And while Xi Jinping, pretends to lead with absolute power, the wheels are turning without him. It doesn't matter. This is dangerous, though, not just for Xi, but for the world. But because he's losing control, and a concerned authoritarian is unpredictable. He may lash out, escalate, start a crisis to distract from his losses. That's how wars begin. Okay, folks. So it's gonna be a big deal coming up soon here. And let's be clear: if she goes down, he's not going to go down quietly. He spent over a decade building a cult personality thing here in China, dismantling checks and balances, rewriting the constitution, and eliminating rivals. He's tied his fate to the party's fate, which means if he fails, the whole system fails. But his enemies within the party know that he's not going to go down easily. They know that, right? And that's why they're not trying to destroy him outright. They're trying to contain him, to clip his wings, to redirect the ship without sinking it. And if they succeed, she becomes less than a dictator. He becomes, I guess you could say, just a symbol. A mascot, I guess you could say at that point. So where does this go, right? What's the point? One possibility, of course, is that she regains control. He identifies a threat, purges it ruthlessly, and reasserts dominance. This is something we've seen in, like, North Korea, right, where they find out that there are some inside guys, and they find them, and then they kill them, yeah. We've seen him do it before. Not on the level that he would have to this time, but we've seen him do it before. If so, expect even more centralized power, more crackdowns, more aggression abroad, and, more suffering for the Chinese people, right? But the other possibility is more subtle. Xi Jinping remains in power, technically, but is quietly neutralized, and like a king with no sword, still on the throne, but no longer feared. And under that setup, China begins to shift again, away from total control and toward a new, international balance. Either way, it looks like the Xi era is no longer stable, or at least at this point isn't stable. The cracks are forming, and I guess you could say the struggle has already begun. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. But when the world finally does see the outcome, I won't be surprised, if something major happens. I won't be surprised at all. I hope it does. I hope we have some, I think China before Xi Jinping was better. China just seems like a better place to be. So, because Xi Jinping built a system that was just so tightly controlled and so centralized and so fragile, right, that the moment it stops obeying him and doing what he says, it all begins to break. So, and I think that the breaking has it's already begun. It's been going for a while, but it's really getting obvious now. So, either way, like, comment, subscribe. Again, if you can go through the 30 for 30 again, rewatch those, I definitely appreciate it. All the watch time is what's actually important to us. Like, comment, subscribe, and watch the videos. Thank you so much, and have a good day.